Hey everyone, Elaine back here. And as always, I'm pleased to be here. I love talking to you and sharing good news. Today, again, we are on a series with a wonderful man by the name of Ranko Ristić, and he is from Yugoslavia originally. And he is sharing his story. This will be the third segment that he's sharing his story about what it's like to live in a country that behind the scenes, people are planning to take over the country. And people are, sort of like we call it the deep state, the underground, that things are happening and people know, but they don't want to admit it, or people are living it and they still can't even conceive and they trust. We're Christians. We trust. We trust God. We trust that if we pray, we trust that, and God is awesome and he will get us through things. But he doesn't promise that there will never be wars. There was wars all throughout history. God has always been here. But he's picked us up and carried us like they did Ranko. And Ranko survived the war, but we're going to tell you the rest of the story about how things looked like they could get better. And that's what we talked about last segment in Yugoslavia, and that his family was staying at uncle's houses and not thinking things, it'll all blow over kind of feeling. Yeah. So what happened next?
All right. At that time, when we arrived to a village, we exited our house. We were hoping we will go back in few weeks.
Right.
Everybody was saying, okay, everything's going to be fine. And now, from this perspective, I look at back, it was still time to fix things. The war was still preventable.
Right.
There were no mass killings. There were no widespread fighting. There were sporadic killings. But still, politicians had a chance, and people had a chance to say no to war.
Right.
But then, as weeks were passing by, because we lived in a Muslim majority area, Muslims started attacking Serbian villages now, burning them, and some of my friends died. And it was getting closer and closer to a village where we were. And then one day, I remember this very well, and this is first time maybe I got a sign that there is a God, and maybe God wanted to save me. I was driving Dad's car from one side of the village to another, and I was stopped by my father's friend. He was in a uniform. He had a rifle, so he was already in the military, guarding the village. And he asked me to give him a ride because his pickup truck on the way to another village, he had a flat tire.
Right.
So I told him, okay, get in, because I was happy to do something.
Sure, to do the right thing.
So he was going around the car, opened the door, and then another pickup truck was approaching. And then he said, oh, don't worry, I know this guy. He's a mechanic. So this person arrived just 2 seconds before this dad's friend got into my car. If we sat into the car, we would be leaving. And then I asked him, no, I'll drive you. Don't worry. He said, no, he has a pickup truck. He has tools. So he convinced me. Okay. So I left. 2 hours later, I actually went to my uncle's house. I fell asleep. My dad woke me up. He said, let's go. There was an attack. This gentleman that asked me to give him a ride and the person who was driving him were ambushed by Muslims. So they already came near to a village. And then we went there to see, to retrieve the body. He was on the road, massacred.
Oh my God.
And this is first time I saw a dead person. This is first time I carry a dead body.
Right.
And it's somebody that I knew. That was my cousin's, my friend's uncle.
Wow.
And he was friends with my father. So somebody that was really close to family.
Right.
was killed. And then I got scared, thinking those 2 seconds, if
Yeah.
I was driving him, I would be there.
Right.
And then I realized, okay, maybe we will not go back home.
Right.
Now I see
How
killings.
serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I see that they are coming, and we were very, very scared because now there was no roads. That was the only safe road to another Serbian village.
Right.
Otherwise, we are surrounded.
Right. So this only safe road now has become totally unsafe.
Yes. And then we stayed there for another month or so, and then my dad decided to move to another part of Yugoslavia where it was safer.
Mm-hmm.
And then only to learn that now this village was overrun, and that my grandfather's sister, who was over 70 years old, her name is Ranko Ristić, was raped and then killed with a knife, and her body was massacred.
Wow.
And this was documented by international court. I received also a photo a few years later from the investigation, but no one ever went to court for that.
So when you look back now, I have to ask you this right now. This is a very tough part of the story. But when you look back now, if you had to do it over again, is there anything you could have done differently?
I would maybe then try, but I was young. I was high school.
Right.
If I was a little bit older, maybe I would try to organize people against the war, to try to make some sense, if it's possible, to fight more, not to be naive and just wait. I would not leave. I would stay there to fight against the war, because war is a failure.
Yes.
No matter who is, there's no good guys in a war, especially civil war. It's different when somebody attacks your country. If somebody comes to my house and I defend it, I am a good guy. That's a bad guy. But in a civil war, when neighbors turn on neighbors, that's something that everybody should know, that should be avoided at all cost. Don't think if war happens you will gain something. No, you will lose for sure.
Yeah, you're going to lose something.
100%.
I mean, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. It's one thing to talk about a basketball game that somebody's going to win or lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that you should be a good loser, but there's no good losing when it comes to war and fighting and people their lives being destroyed, their homes being destroyed, their families being torn apart. I'm sure you saw some of that.
Oh, I saw a lot of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, because later when we moved, again, the war came to that region, and then I had to join the army because military service was also mandatory. I already turned 18.
Right.
And then I felt much safer. With the rifle in my hands, I was not anymore in a situation when somebody can pull me out of the car and at the gunpoint order my dad or me to do whatever they want.
Right.
Then things got a little bit more serious, and then I knew 100% there is no going back.
And so now at this point, you are literally what they call living in the trenches. You're in a war. I hate to do this to you, but can you describe to me what that felt like and some of the things that you faced?
It felt then something in your brain switches. I think it's survival mode, instinct.
I can see why that
then
would be.
Then you don't think about protests, and then you are protecting yourself, your family. I was in the trenches in Bosnia. I had my friends die on my arms, shot next to me, sitting next to me, and the sniper shot them.
I mean, you got to picture that, people. I mean, I'm sorry, but this show and meeting this wonderful man is intended to open our eyes and not to think negative all the time. I'm not suggesting that or to say that everything that he's saying is going to happen. I'm saying be prepared. Put on the whole armor of God every day. Think of your family and go through scenarios of what if and what would I do and what could they have done better. That's why I'm asking him questions like that. So, it really breaks my heart. But, sometimes we have to say to ourselves, if that was my best friend and I had to hold them in my arms and watch them die or have them sitting beside me and have them blown up or killed, and then the aftermath of carrying those bodies away and, this has happened. There's veterans out there listening to this right now that this is taking you back to a time that you lived through this. But we need to help the people understand that we love God. We know he's there for us. But we have to pray that he's going to see us through this and that we have to be strong. And we have to know that if it can happen in Yugoslavia, and all these, like Israel, if it can happen in Israel, God, it just kills me what's happening in Israel. Those are God's chosen people. But I know that God promised that he would save his people. And so we all know something's going to happen. We just don't know what. And your real story is so important right now so that we can all find that place in our heart and in our head to first thank God we're not there. First, and always thank him. And secondly, count on the fact that he will be there just like he was for you, because you're here to tell us the story. You're here to share what it was like and what it could be like if we don't stand up now, if we don't go and vote, if we don't get out there and speak for God and for our country, if we don't become patriots with courage, not just talking about it to the neighbors, but instead being courageous and talking to our children and telling them what they would need to do if something like that happened. We must be, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. Am I right?
You're 100% right.
Yes. And just knowing you, Ranko, gives me more courage. Just hearing your story helps me to understand that, there is a happy ending, but there's a long road in between if we're not prepared, a long road. And you lived through so much more after that. And we will get more into that as we get into the next and final segment of this time that we're doing this, and talk more about what it's looking like and what our country looks like. And just such a blessing to have you here. And thank all of you for coming to be with the show today. And I hope that if you haven't seen the previous segments, you always know you can go to elainebeck.com. You'll see all of my shows, but we will post these so that they're in the right segment. We will make sure that you can watch each and every one of them. You can hear the full story. And I guess you'd call this story the realities of not what is, but what could be, and what we should be prepared to do in case it does happen. That we've got to not be in denial at times in our life. So, I always pray for you. You know that we're always here for you. Reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And have a blessed day.